Hello everyone. Today, I'll continue telling you the love story of Sam and Officer Lee. I hope you enjoy watching the video. Since the day Lee left on his work assignment, a full month has passed. It wasn't long enough to be called a separation, yet it was long enough for longing to settle, and then rise again in a very different way, quiet, persistent, and difficult to name. At first, Sam maintained her familiar calm. She reminded herself that she was used to the nature of Lee's job. Long trips, sudden silences, calls cut short midway. None of it was unfamiliar. She understood that there were times he couldn't contact her, not because he forgot, but because he wasn't allowed to. And because of that, she had never blamed him. But understanding doesn't mean not worrying. The first week passed quite peacefully. Lee still managed to send a few short messages. Not long, not emotional, but enough to let Sam know he was okay. I'm fine. Work's a bit urgent. Miss you and our little one. Just those 3 simple lines were enough to put her at ease for the whole day. She read them again and again, careful not to reply too long, afraid of disturbing him. She was used to putting her own feelings last, a habit ingrained for a very long time. But then the messages grew sparse. By the second week, Lee had gone almost completely silent. Sam kept her phone right beside her whenever she slept, not because she expected a sudden call, but because she was afraid of missing one. Even the slightest vibration, a single line appearing in the middle of the night, and she would wake instantly. But the screen remained dark. During the day, Sam tried to keep herself busy. She took care of her child, cleaned the house, cooked on time, took her child for walks around the neighborhood like always. Everything still ran orderly and steady, to the point that outsiders wouldn't notice anything different. Only Sam knew that inside she was slowly emptying out. At night, when her child slept soundly, the house became so quiet she could hear the wall clock ticking. Sam often sat alone on the edge of the bed, phone in hand but unopened. She didn't dare call first. She was afraid that if she called and he didn't answer, the worry would multiply. Some nights she would jolt awake for no reason, her heart racing. A vague sense of unease clung to her. Not clear, not shapeless, just a very feminine instinct difficult to explain. He must just be busy, Sam told herself, repeating the same reassurance too many times. By the third week, the worry no longer stayed still. Sam began paying attention to every news item on TV, every headline that flashed across her phone. She wasn't searching for anything in particular, yet whenever she saw reports of accidents, conflicts, or incidents far away, her heart tightened. She hated herself for it. Hated how her mind unconsciously drifted toward the worst, even without reason. Several times, Sam picked up her phone and typed out a long message, only to delete it. In the end, she sent just one short line. Are you okay? The message was sent. The read receipt appeared. But there was no reply. She put the phone down, pretending nothing had happened. Yet her hands stayed cold. Meanwhile, in a place very far away, Lee was no less anxious. This assignment was more complicated than he had expected. The schedule was extended, communication restricted. Some days he was only allowed to check his phone for a few brief minutes, just enough to see Sam's name light up, and then turn the screen off again. Each time his chest tightened, Lee knew Sam would worry. He understood that better than anyone. She wasn't the type to complain or reproach him. It was precisely that quiet endurance that made him most uncomfortable with himself. Some nights, when everything had finally calmed down, Lee lay staring at the ceiling in the dark, thinking of the two of them back home. He imagined Sam holding their child, lulling the baby to sleep, then sitting alone in the familiar room. The thought kept him awake. Just hang on a little longer, he told himself. Once this is done, I'll go home. Lee counted each passing day, not from exhaustion but from longing. A longing that was real and clear, no longer vague like previous assignments. He missed hearing Sam call his name every morning, missed the way she cared quietly without ever saying it out loud. He even missed the simple peace he'd only realized he needed so much after leaving it behind. He wanted to go home, to see Sam in the flesh, to tell her he was fine, that she didn't have to worry alone like this. But for now he still couldn't. And at both ends of that longing, Sam and Lee were waiting, each in their own way, in silences that were deeply human. During the days Lee was away, the person who appeared most often besides Sam was his older sister. Without fuss or display, she came naturally, as if she had always been there. Sometimes early in the morning, sometimes in the late afternoon, carrying a bag of vegetables, a few pieces of fruit, or a pot of soup still warm. She offered no long explanations, asked no unnecessary questions. She simply stepped into the house, as if caring for Sam and her child was the most natural thing in the world. First, Sam felt hesitant. She was afraid of imposing, afraid of owing too much. But Lee's sister only smiled. A gentle smile very much like Lee's. "Don't overthink it. I'm here." Just that one simple sentence was enough to make Sam's nose sting. She understood Sam in her own way. Without asking, she knew Sam was worried. Without hearing it, she could tell Sam was tired. Some afternoons, while Sam struggled to put the baby to sleep, the kitchen would already be quietly cleaned. Some evenings, when Sam's hands were full, she would hold the baby, humming softly, steady and familiar, as if she had done it countless times before. When the baby was asleep, the two women sat side by side in the small house, the silence so deep they could hear the fan turning. Lee's sister poured Sam a cup of warm water and gently slid it toward her. "Drink a little. You've lost weight lately." Sam took the cup, her hand hesitating slightly. "I'm fine," She didn't argue. She just looked at Sam for a long time, with the eyes of someone who had lived, worried, waited, and understood what it meant to love a man whose job always placed danger before himself. "I know," she said softly. "You always say you're fine. But we women, we're not always as strong as we think." Sam lowered her head. This time she didn't deny it. There were days when the worry inside her grew so large she didn't know where to put it. No one had done anything wrong. There was no clear crisis. Just the prolonged silence, the kind of silence that unsettles the heart. Lee's sister placed her hand over Sam's. The touch was light but warm. "That's how Lee's job is. I've been used to it for a long time. Sometimes there's no news for a whole month. But trust me, that boy has never forgotten his family." Sam looked up, her eyes slightly red. "I don't blame him. I'm just afraid." She stopped mid-sentence. Some fears don't need words. Those who understand already do. Lee's sister squeezed Sam's hand a little tighter. "It's normal to be afraid. To love without fear, that would be strange." Then she smiled, her voice slow but certain. "Remember this. If he could come back sooner, Lee would have done it long ago. He's just as anxious as you are." Sam fell silent. For the first time in many days, she allowed herself to lean on someone without feeling guilty. From that day on, whenever unease rose, Sam was no longer alone. Lee's sister sat beside her. There were small, rambling conversations, simple encouragements without flowery words, just honest enough. And in those quiet moments, Sam gradually learned one thing. Waiting isn't always lonely. If beside you there are people who love you enough to stay. That afternoon passed by very ordinarily. Sam was in the kitchen, her hands moving quickly as she washed vegetables, while her mind drifted back to familiar thoughts. The child was asleep in the bedroom. The house was so quiet that only the steady sound of running water could be heard. Lee's older sister had just left not long before, reminding her on the way out. "If you're tired tonight, don't cook anything too complicated. I'll come by early tomorrow." Sam simply nodded and smiled. She had grown used to that quiet, thoughtful care. Suddenly, the sound of a car engine came from outside. It wasn't loud or noisy, just unusual. This small alley was usually very quiet, and at this hour it was rare for a car to stop in front of the house. Sam's hands paused. A feeling she couldn't quite name flickered through her chest. Not exactly worry, not quite joy. Just her heart suddenly began to beat faster than usual. Footsteps sounded. Slow. Steady. Very familiar. Sam stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen. Her hands were still wet, water dripping onto the cold tiled floor. She didn't dare turn around right away, as if afraid that with just one movement, everything would vanish like a passing thought. Then the door opened. "Sam!" Just a soft call. But it was enough to make Sam's world tilt. She spun around. At the doorway stood Lee. Still in his familiar uniform, his face noticeably thinner, his skin darkened by the sun, dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. A backpack hung loosely over one shoulder, as if he had come straight here from a long journey without stopping anywhere else. For a long moment Sam couldn't say a word. She just stood there staring at him, eyes wide, lips trembling. All the worry, unease, waiting, and restraint of the entire month rushed in at once, leaving her unsure whether she should cry or smile. "Why you?" Her voice broke. "You're back already?" Lee set the backpack down and quickly stepped closer. Just 2 steps and he was right in front of her. Without another word, he pulled Sam into his arms. The embrace was tight, very tight, as if letting go for even a second would make her disappear. Sam pressed her face against his chest. That familiar scent and warmth finally broke her restraint. Tears spilled out, soaking the front of Lee's shirt. She cried silently, her shoulders trembling. Crying for the night she waited for the phone screen to light up. Crying for all the time she had reassured herself that everything would be fine. "I'm sorry," Lee whispered, his voice hoarse. "I came back too late." Sam shook her head, tears still falling. "As long as you're back. That's all that matters." A soft sound came from the inner room. The bedroom door opened and the child peeked out, eyes still heavy with sleep. The child froze upon seeing the familiar yet unfamiliar man. "Dad?" Just one hesitant word. Lee released Sam and knelt down to the child's level. His eyes reddened instantly. "I'm here. Dad's home." The child hesitated for a second, then ran straight toward him. Lee opened his arms, holding the child tightly, kissing the small head that still smelled faintly of milk. In that moment the 3 of them stood together. No one spoke, yet every heart was full. Sam watched the father and child, tears still falling, but this time they were lighter, warmer. She stepped closer, placing a hand on Lee's shoulder on the child's back, as if to make sure everything was real. Lee looked up at her, his gaze softening completely. "I missed you both so much." Sam nodded, managing a trembling smile through her tears. "I know." Outside, the afternoon light slowly faded. The small house suddenly felt warmer than ever. Not because there were more people, but because after so much waiting, no one had to wait alone anymore. On the first night after Lee's return, the house lights stayed on later than usual. No one hurried to sleep. No one said it out loud, but all 3 were afraid that if they closed their eyes, this moment would dissolve like an overly vivid dream. Sam set out a simple meal. Just a few familiar dishes, hot soup, boiled vegetables, a bowl of white rice. But that meal felt warmer than any feast. Lee sat across from her, eating while looking at the 2 of them, his eyes filled with quiet contentment. He ate slowly, as if trying to stretch the feeling of being home just a little longer. The child sat between them, chatting away about the day. Lee listened attentively, sometimes nodding, sometimes smiling. There were details he didn't fully understand, but he didn't interrupt. At that moment, just hearing the child's voice was enough. After dinner, Lee volunteered to wash the dishes. Sam leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching him fumble a bit with the stack of bowls. Awkward, yet familiar. A rare sense of peace crept into her heart, the kind that had been absent for an entire month. When the child was fast asleep, the house settled into a gentle quiet. Lee leaned back against the headboard, Sam sitting beside him. The soft yellow glow of the night lamp cast their shadows on the wall, long and gentle. For a long while neither spoke. Only the steady breathing of the child could be heard from the next room. Finally Lee spoke. "I'm sorry for making you worry for so long." His voice was low and slow, without avoidance. Sam shook her head. "I understand." Lee turned to look at her. His expression grew serious, no longer the reassuring smile from earlier. "You understand. But I can't accept you having to understand all by yourself." Sam paused. She looked at him and, for the first time, clearly saw the exhaustion beneath his familiar calm. Lee took a deep breath, as if gathering all his courage. "This time, there were moments when I thought I might not make it back in time." Sam held her breath. "There were nights when I lay in the dark, my phone right in my hand, just opening it and I could call you, but I didn't dare." He smiled faintly, but it wasn't a happy smile. "I was afraid that if I heard your voice, I wouldn't be clear-headed enough to continue the job. Afraid I'd lose focus. Afraid I'd become weak." Sam placed her hand over his. His hand felt colder than she expected. "I was afraid too," Lee continued, his voice lowering. "Afraid that if something happened, you'd be left waiting in hopelessness, like the times my sister once waited." Sam tightened her grip on his hand. I don't need you to be strong all the time, she said softly. I just need you to come back. Lee lowered his head. After a long moment, he rested his forehead against Sam's shoulder. When I stood outside the door and heard your voice in the kitchen, that's when I realized how much I'd missed this ordinary life. Sam said nothing. She simply wrapped her arms around him, like holding someone who had just weathered many storms. Outside, the night was still and windless. Inside the small house there were no grand promises, no long-term plans, only presence. And for both of them that was enough. Lee lay down beside Sam very gently, as if afraid to disturb this fragile sleep. He pulled the blanket up around her and placed his hand on her back. A familiar safe place. Sleep, he whispered. I'm here now. This time too Sam fell asleep quickly. No more jolting awake in the night. No more restless dreams. Only steady deep breathing. Of someone who no longer had to wait. And in that peaceful darkness, Lee looked at the two of them and silently promised himself, no matter how far his work might take him, this would always be the place he must return to. On the first morning after Lee returned, the house woke up later than usual. Sunlight slipped through the gap in the window, spreading into a thin golden streak across the tiled floor. Sam opened her eyes in a very strange state. No sudden start, no disorientation, no need for a few seconds to remember where she was. She simply felt the familiar warmth right beside her. Lee was still asleep. His breathing was steady and slow. His face relaxed in a way she rarely saw. The tension was gone, along with the invisible lines of worry at the corners of his eyes. Sam turned slightly and watched him for a long time, as if trying to memorize this moment, one she had only dared to imagine during the past month. Their child stirred in the next room, making a very small sound. Sam shifted, about to get up, but Lee opened his eyes. He wasn't fully awake yet, but his hand instinctively reached out to hers, holding her back. Let me, he said softly, his voice still hoarse. I'll get up with the child. Just that one sentence made Sam's heart soften completely. Lee walked out of the room, his steps still slow but steady. Sam heard him whispering to the child's soft giggles, then the familiar footsteps on the floor. She lay back for a while longer, closed her eyes, and let that very real sense of peace sink into each breath. Breakfast that morning was simpler than ever. Lee made coffee, Sam prepared food for the child. The three of them gathered around the small table. No one rushed. No one checked the clock. As they ate, Lee asked about the smallest things, whether the child had been sleeping well lately, whether Sam had been feeling tired, whether there was anything missing in the house. Those seemingly trivial questions were, to Sam, the clearest proof that he had truly come home. While Sam was cleaning up the kitchen, there was a knock at the door. 3 knocks. Light. Very familiar. Before Sam could reach the door, it opened slightly. Lee's sister stepped in, carrying a bag as she always did. But when she saw Lee standing there, she paused. Just for a second. Then she smiled. The smile softened immediately, as if a weight she had been carrying for the entire month had finally been lifted. You're back. Her voice was calm, but her eyes shone with genuine happiness. Lee stepped forward and dipped his head slightly. I'm back, Chi. She set the bag down and looked around the house. Without asking anything, she could already feel the difference. The air was lighter, calmer. Sam stood nearby, a smile on her lips, clearer and more relaxed than it had been in weeks. Lee's sister walked over and took Sam's hand. Seeing you like this puts my mind at ease. Sam smiled and nodded gently. Thanks to you, Chi. She shook her head. No. It's because he chose to come back. She glanced at Lee as she spoke, her eyes filled with both fond reproach and pride. The three of them sat together for a while. The child played nearby, occasionally running over to hug their father's leg, then laughing and running off again. Watching the scene, Lee's sister let out a long breath, like she could finally set down a burden she had been holding. During the days you were gone, she said slowly. Sam worried, but she didn't say it out loud. That kind of worry. I know it well. Lee remained silent. She didn't scold him or lecture him. She simply continued gently. It's good that you're back like this. The rest can come slowly. Lee nodded. This time he didn't avoid her gaze. Sam sat beside them, listening to every word, every pause. She suddenly realized, Some families don't need many promises. Being there for one another at the right time is enough. That morning passed slowly and gently. There were no big events, no dramatic moments. But in that ordinary calm, too, Sam understood this clearly. After long days of waiting, life had finally returned to its natural rhythm. Lee's sister stayed until noon. No one formally invited her to stay, and no one thought of seeing her off. She remained naturally, rolling up her sleeves to help Sam cook as if she had always done so. The small kitchen felt livelier than usual, not because of constant conversation, but because of an unspoken understanding. Lee leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching the two women, one his sister, the other the woman he had chosen to share his life with. He didn't interrupt, only quietly rinsing rice or washing vegetables when needed, his expression softening bit by bit. Lunch was simple. Hot soup, a familiar savory dish, a plate of green vegetables still fragrant with the earth. The child sat between them, eating while playing with a spoon, laughing from time to time. The warmth of the moment made the exhausting days before feel very far away. After the meal, Lee's sister set her bowl down and looked at Sam. "What are your plans for the future?" Her tone wasn't probing or pressuring, just an honest question. Sam hesitated slightly. During the month Lee was away, she hadn't really thought about the future. Her only concern then had been getting through each day safely. Lee looked at Sam without speaking, his gaze giving her full freedom to choose. "I haven't thought that far ahead," Sam said slowly. "I just hope things can be peaceful for now." Lee's sister nodded, as if she had expected that answer. "No need to rush." She turned to Lee. "Your work will still involve long trips, but family needs to be considered too." Lee nodded, this time without hesitation. "I know. I've been thinking about requesting an adjustment to my position, not leaving entirely but being home more." Sam looked up at him, surprise clearly written in her eyes. Lee smiled softly and took her hand. "I don't want you to have to be strong on your own all the time anymore." Watching them, Lee's sister let out a long, quiet breath, as if a chapter of worry in her heart had finally come to an end. The afternoon passed peacefully. When she stood up to leave, she hugged Sam lightly. "If you need anything, just call me. If Lee has to leave again, I'm still here." Sam nodded, her eyes slightly red. That afternoon, Lee suggested taking the two of them out. "Just for a walk," he said. "Nothing far." Sam hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She put a light jacket on the child and changed into something simple herself. The feeling of getting ready to go out together, the three of them, felt both unfamiliar and strangely familiar. Lee drove slowly. No music. The windows were lowered, letting in the cool breeze. The child sat in the back, excitedly watching the scenery pass by, asking endless questions. Lee answered each one patiently and gently. They stopped at a small park. Not crowded. Just a few families, a few children running around on the grass. Lee held the child's hand, Sam walking beside them. The three moved together, their shadows stretching long across the stone path. The child ran ahead for a bit, then turned back, reaching out a hand to their father. "Dad, play with me." Lee laughed, bent down, and ran after the child a little awkwardly. Sam watched, her heart softening bit by bit. A month earlier, she hadn't dared imagine this scene, so ordinary yet so precious to her. Lee turned back and held out his hand to Sam. "Come with me." Sam hesitated for exactly 1 second. Then she placed her hand in his. That hand was warm. Very real. They didn't say much. No promises. No grand plans. Just walking together beneath the gentle afternoon sun, amid their child's laughter, as if all the hurt and worry had been left behind. And in that moment, too, Sam understood something very clearly. The future doesn't need to be perfect. As long as there is someone beside you willing to take your hand and walk forward together, that is enough.
Xin chào mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay của mình. Chúc mọi người có một ngày mới vui vẻ, hạnh phúc và một ngày làm việc tràn đầy năng lượng. Hy vọng rằng mọi người vẫn sẽ yêu thích những câu chuyện mình chia sẻ và ủng hộ kênh cho mình để mình có động lực ra nhiều video hơn cho mọi người cùng xem. Hiện tại thì kênh của mình đang phát hành những video vào khung giờ 7 giờ tối và 7 giờ sáng. Nếu mà mọi người yêu thích và muốn lắng nghe những câu chuyện mình chia sẻ thì nhớ bấm like, share và bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất, và cũng không để bỏ lỡ những video mới mình đăng tải. Và nhớ để cho lại cho mình một nhận xét ở dưới phần bình luận để mình có động lực làm nhiều video hơn cho mọi người cùng xem. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe hết một phút chia sẻ của mình. Hy vọng sẽ gặp lại mọi người ở trong những video tiếp theo. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở video lần sau nha.